Ask any black man over 70 about his first summer paycheck and watch his face change. He will tell you about work that started before sunrise, paid in folded dollar bills, and vanished so completely that his grandchildren would not recognize the words for it. Number 24 on this list had him standing at the end of a bowling lane, resetting pins by hand before the machines took over. Number 2 put him on a Western Union bicycle, carrying envelopes a family might be afraid to open. And the number 1 job, the most common of them all, paid nothing at all. Some of this work was hard in ways no teenager today will ever know, and every bit of it is gone. Hit subscribe, because working history like this deserves to be remembered. Here are 25 summer jobs black teenagers once had that do not exist anymore. Number 25. Cotton chopping. Before machines took over the fields, cotton still needed human hands every summer across Mississippi, Alabama, and the Georgia Black Belt. Black teenagers woke before dawn, wrapped rags around their palms, and walked rows that stretched past the tree line. You dragged a sack that got heavier with every hour, and the sun made the air feel like it had weight. The pay was counted by the pound, and a full sack bought less than you might expect. But cotton money was family money, and a teenager who worked the fields handed most of it to a mother who already knew where it was going. Mechanical harvesters replaced the hands by the late 1960s, and a summer ritual that shaped rural black childhood ended without ceremony. Number 24. Setting pins at the bowling alley. Before automatic pin setters, somebody had to stand at the end of the lane and reset the pins by hand. In bowling alleys across Baltimore, Detroit, and Chicago, that somebody was often a black teenager working for tips and a flat rate per game. You sat on a narrow ledge above the pit, waited for the ball to crash through, then jumped down and set 10 pins back into position. The noise was constant. The pins flew. Most alleys paid by volume, so the quicker you reset, the more you earned. When Brunswick and AMF rolled out automatic machines in the late 1950s and early 1960s, the pin setters disappeared almost overnight. Thousands of teenagers lost a reliable summer income to a mechanical arm that never needed a break. Number 23. Shining shoes. Every downtown had at least one shoe shine stand, and in black neighborhoods from Harlem to Memphis, teenagers ran their own. A wooden box, a few tins of polish, a rag, and a spot on the sidewalk. That was the entire operation. You charged a dime or a quarter depending on the decade, and if your hands were fast, you could clear enough on a Saturday afternoon to feel rich. Barbershops kept a shoe shine chair by the door. The work was honest and visible, and a good shine boy built a reputation that brought repeat customers every week. Sneaker culture killed the trade. When leather dress shoes stopped being everyday wear, the stands folded up and the skill went with them. Number 22. Carrying bags at the train station. In cities like Chicago, Philadelphia, and Washington, black teenagers earned summer money as redcaps, hauling suitcases and trunks for travelers at the depot. You stood on the platform in a pressed cap and waited for the next train, then moved fast. A family of 4 might have 6 bags, and you carried everyone without a cart because carts slowed you down. Tips were the whole paycheck. A generous traveler handed you $1. A cheap one gave you a nickel and did not look back. When air travel took over and stations emptied out in the late 1960s, those platform jobs vanished. The boys who once ran those bags became the last generation to learn customer service at a train whistle. Number 21. Running numbers. This was the job nobody put on a resume, but in black neighborhoods from Detroit to Harlem to the south side of Chicago, it kept money circulating through the community. Teenagers served as runners, picking up slips and small bets from neighbors and delivering them to the numbers man. You picked a 3-digit number, placed your bet, and if it matched, you won. The risk was arrest, but the numbers operation often funded the very businesses and social clubs that held the community together. A teenager who ran numbers learned the block. Every house, every regular, every shortcut. When state lotteries legalized in the 1970s and 1980s, the numbers game lost its monopoly. The money flowed to the state instead of back through the neighborhood. Number 20. Working the soda fountain. Drugstores used to serve more than prescriptions. They had long marble counters with chrome stools, and behind the counter, someone mixed phosphates, cherry colas, and egg creams by hand. In black neighborhoods, that someone was often a teenager. Cities like Richmond, Nashville, and the Bronx had black-owned pharmacies with their own fountain counters where young people learned to work fast, handle money, and deal with customers. The fountain was the neighborhood's living room. People sat and talked for hours. When fast food chains spread and drugstores dropped their counters, the soda fountain disappeared. The skill of mixing a proper limericky went with it. These jobs did not show up in career pamphlets. No guidance counselor handed out applications. Black teenagers found summer work the same way their parents found everything else, through the church bulletin board, a neighbor who knew somebody, or an uncle who owed your father a favor. The economy that employed them was local, informal, and built on trust. A store owner hired you because your mother shopped there. A tradesman brought you along because your father asked. The money stayed close. A teenager who earned a few dollars sweeping a shop spent it at the candy store on the same block. When that local economy broke apart, the summer jobs went with it. Number 19. Tobacco priming. In eastern North Carolina and southern Virginia, tobacco was king, and every summer it demanded hands. Black teenagers as young as 13 hired on to prime the crop, walking the rows at dawn and pulling ripe leaves off the stalk from the bottom up. The dew mixed with nicotine and coated your skin. Old hands called it green tobacco sickness. You learned to wear long sleeves in 90-degree heat just to keep the juice off your arms. Your back ached by noon, and your hands turned black from the resin. Nobody complained because everybody in the row was doing the same thing. The pay was better than cotton, and a teenager who worked a full season could cover school clothes. By the 1980s, mechanization shrank the labor force, and a summer ritual that shaped generations of young black workers in the Carolinas faded into something only the people who lived it still talk about. Number 18. Elevator operator. In department stores, office buildings, and hotels across New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, someone sat on a small stool inside the elevator and pulled a brass lever to move between floors. In many buildings, that someone was a young black man working his first real indoor job. The uniform was pressed, the gloves were white. The instructions were simple: announce the floor, open the gate, close the gate, and never speak unless spoken to. For a teenager who had only known outdoor labor, the work was quiet and clean, and it came with something rare, a uniform that made you look like you belonged in the building. Automatic elevators eliminated the position entirely. The brass lever gave way to a row of buttons, and a job that put thousands of young people to work became a footnote. Number 17. Pumping gas at the service station. Before self-service became the standard, every gas station employed attendants who pumped your fuel, checked your oil, and cleaned your windshield. In black communities from Los Angeles to Jacksonville, teenage boys worked the pumps through the summer, learning engines and customer service at the same time. The station owner was usually someone the family knew, and the job came with unwritten rules: show up on time, keep your shirt tucked, and never argue with a customer. Tips were inconsistent, but the mechanical knowledge was free. A teenager who spent 2 summers at a gas station could change a tire and diagnose a rough idle by sound alone. When states began allowing self-service and stations cut staff, the attendant vanished from the American roadside. Number 16. Car hop at the drive-in restaurant. Before fast food windows, you pulled into a parking spot, flashed your headlights, and waited for someone to walk over and take your order. In black neighborhoods, that someone was often a teenager balancing a tray of burgers and milkshakes on one arm. The work was fast, social, and entirely dependent on tips. A Friday night shift at a busy drive-in was chaos. Cars lined up 3 deep and orders shouted over music from a dozen different radios. When indoor fast food chains replaced the drive-in model, the parking lots emptied and the trays went into storage. The tips stopped. Number 15. Pressing clothes at the laundry. Commercial laundries and dry cleaners employed teenagers to operate steam presses, sort garments, and prepare bundles for pickup. In cities like St. Louis, Cleveland, and Washington, black-owned laundries were common, and hiring a neighborhood teenager for the summer was standard. The steam press was a heavy, hot machine. You laid the garment flat, pulled the press down, held it for a count, then moved to the next piece. The laundry smelled like starch and hot cotton, and by the end of a shift your forearms were damp and your fingers ached. Permanent press fabrics and wash-and-wear clothing cut the demand for professional pressing. The machines cooled down, the teenagers moved on. Number 14. Caddying at the country club. This was one of the strangest summer jobs a black teenager could hold because it put you inside a world that would not let you through the front door. Country clubs across the South and Midwest hired black teenagers as caddies on a clear, unspoken contract. Carry the bags, read the greens, keep quiet, stay invisible. The caddy yard behind the clubhouse was its own society. Older boys got the better golfers and the bigger tips. You learned patience. You learned that the man who joked with you on the course would not acknowledge you in the parking lot. Most took the money and the lesson, which was that proximity to wealth did not mean access to it. Golf carts replaced human caddies at most clubs by the 1980s, and the yards went silent. Number 13. Domestic day work. In cities across the South and in northern suburbs, black teenage girls spent their summers cleaning houses for white families. The work was arranged through mothers and aunts who already had regular clients. You scrubbed floors, washed windows, ironed curtains, and sometimes watched children while the family went out. The pay was low and often negotiated by the mother, not the teenager. Transportation was a bus ride to a part of town where nobody looked like you. The work taught something no classroom covered: how to move through spaces where you were needed but not wanted. As cleaning services became corporate operations, the individual arrangement faded. The bus ride to the suburbs stopped being necessary. Number 12. Stocking shelves at the Five and Dime. Woolworths, Kresge's, and dozens of local variety stores employed teenagers to unpack boxes, stock shelves, and sweep the aisles. In black neighborhoods, the Five and Dime was where you bought school supplies, sewing notions, and penny candy from glass jars behind the counter. A summer job there meant knowing where everything went and memorizing prices that changed by the week. For many black teenagers, it was their first experience with a time clock and a cash register. When big box retailers replaced the variety store model in the 1980s and 1990s, the Five and Dimes closed for good. The glass candy jars disappeared. Number 11. Delivering newspapers. A paper route was a rite of passage. In black neighborhoods from Baltimore to Oakland, a teenage boy on a bicycle with a canvas bag slung over his shoulder was a morning fixture. You picked up your stack before dawn, folded each paper tight, and threw it onto porches while the street was still quiet. The route was yours, and so were the collections. Once a week, you knocked on every door, and if someone stiffed you, the loss came out of your own earnings. A paper route taught territory, timing, and the hard edge of personal responsibility. Digital news finished what declining subscriptions started, and the canvas bag was replaced by a notification on a phone. Number 10. Sweeping the floor at the barbershop. The barbershop was the nerve center of every black neighborhood, and the teenager who swept the floor was its youngest employee. Keep the hair off the tile, empty the trash, run out for sandwiches when the barbers got hungry. a few dollars, and whatever tips the barbers decided to share. But the real compensation was access. You heard every conversation about politics, money, and survival. You watched grown men negotiate, disagree, and make up before the next customer sat down. That floor was a free education in how a community holds itself together. Number 9. Working at the drive-in movie theater. On summer nights, black teenagers in towns from Texas to the Carolinas worked the ticket booth, ran the concession stand, or walked the rows checking that speakers were hung on windows. The drive-in was one of the few entertainment spaces where black families could watch a movie without being told to sit in the balcony. Working there meant free movies and a front-row seat to the neighborhood's Friday night life. When multiplexes and home video drew audiences indoors, the drive-ins closed one by one. The big screens went dark. The speaker posts rusted in fields that turned into shopping centers. Number 8. Picking crabs and shucking oysters. Along the Chesapeake Bay, the Gulf Coast, and the Carolina Low Country, black teenagers spent summers in seafood processing houses, picking crab meat from shells and shucking oysters by the bushel. The work was wet, repetitive, and measured by the pound. The shells cut your fingers until the calluses built up, and the house smelled like salt water and marsh. In communities around Beaufort, South Carolina, and the eastern shore of Maryland, seafood work was generational. Grandmothers taught granddaughters the flick of the wrist that separated meat from shell without crushing it. When processing moved offshore, the local houses shut down, and the benches went empty. Number 7. Helping the junk man. In black neighborhoods, the junk man came through on a regular route, calling out from a flatbed truck loaded with scrap metal and salvage. Teenagers rode along as helpers, jumping off the truck to knock on doors and haul heavy items from basements. The junk man knew the price of copper, the weight of cast iron, and which yard paid the best rate on any given week. A teenager who worked alongside him learned to see value in things other people threw away. A pile of old pipes was not trash. It was next month's groceries. When municipal garbage collection expanded in the 1970s and 1980s, the independent junk man lost his function. An entire economy of reuse was quietly replaced by a truck with a city logo on the side. What made these summer jobs different from anything available today was not the labor itself. Hard work still exists. What vanished was the structure around it. A black teenager in the 1960s learned to work inside a web of adults who knew each other, who watched each other's children, who reported back to a parent if a kid showed up late or talked back. The barbershop owner who hired you to sweep also corrected your grammar. The laundry owner who taught you the steam press also expected you to say yes ma'am and no sir to every customer. Accountability was built into the neighborhood, not into a manual. When the local economy fractured and black-owned businesses closed, the apprenticeship system that ran on handshakes went with it. Number 6. Helping at the telephone switchboard. In small southern towns and a handful of northern cities, local telephone exchanges employed young people to assist operators by plugging and unplugging cords. In black communities, these positions were rare and prized because the work was indoors, clean, and carried status. You sat at a board covered in numbered jacks and connected collars by inserting a plug into the right slot. The pace turned frantic during busy hours. A mistake meant a wrong connection and an angry callback. Direct dial technology eliminated the switchboard entirely by the mid-1970s. A job that required quick hands and a sharp memory was made obsolete by a system that let people dial their own numbers. Number 5. Selling door-to-door. Encyclopedia sets, magazine subscriptions, cleaning products, seeds, and greeting cards. Before the internet made catalogs irrelevant, companies recruited teenagers to canvass neighborhoods and sell at the front door. In black communities, these routes were often organized through churches or school programs. Rejection was constant. Most doors closed before you finished your opening sentence, but the ones that opened taught you how to read a face, adjust your approach, and close a conversation without burning a bridge. The products were secondary. The skill was persuasion. And a teenager who sold door to door for 2 or 3 summers knew more about human nature than most adults learn in a lifetime. The direct sales model collapsed when online shopping made the doorbell unnecessary. Number 4. Picking fruit and berries. Across the rural South and into parts of the Midwest, Black teenagers spent summers in orchards and berry fields, filling baskets for pennies per pound. Peaches in Georgia, strawberries in Louisiana, blueberries along the coastal Carolinas. The work was seasonal, outdoor, and paid by volume, which meant speed and stamina determined your earnings. The fields were social in a way that few jobs are. You worked alongside cousins, classmates, and strangers from the next county over. The fruit you picked ended up at roadside stands and in mason jars that lined kitchen shelves through the winter. When commercial agriculture consolidated, the small farms that relied on local teenagers switched to contract crews or shut their gates. Number 3. Running the projector at the movie house. Neighborhood theaters, especially the ones that served Black audiences during segregation, employed teenagers to help in the projection booth. You loaded heavy reels onto the projector, threaded the film through the gate, and watched for the cue marks that told you when to switch reels. A missed changeover meant a blank screen and an auditorium full of angry voices. The booth was hot, small, and loud with the hum of the machine, but it came with a perk no other summer job could match. You saw every movie for free, sometimes 3 times in a single day. When theaters converted to digital projection, the reels became relics. A computer replaced the teenager and the machine in one stroke. Number 2. Delivering telegrams. Western Union employed teenage messengers to deliver telegrams by bicycle or on foot. In Black neighborhoods, a telegram could mean anything: a death in the family, a money wire from a relative up north, or a draft notice. The messenger was the first face people saw when news arrived, and your expression mattered because they read it before they opened the envelope. You pedaled fast, handed the yellow paper to whoever answered the door, and moved to the next address. The job required knowing the streets cold and riding in weather that kept everyone else indoors. When the telephone became universal, the messenger service ended. The bicycle routes stopped. The yellow envelopes stopped coming. Number 1. Truck farming with your grandparents. The most common summer job a Black teenager held was the one that paid nothing at all. Across the South and in backyards from Detroit to Philadelphia, families kept gardens that were not hobbies. They were food systems. A teenager sent to stay with grandparents for the summer spent mornings pulling weeds, hauling water, and learning which plants needed shade and which needed full sun. The harvest was eaten fresh, canned in mason jars, shared with neighbors who needed it, and stored for the months when grocery prices climbed. The garden taught patience, seasons, and the mathematics of survival. How many jars of tomatoes a family needed to last through February? How many rows of greens had to go in the ground by May? Nobody called it agriculture. They called it helping your grandmother. And it fed more families for longer than any paying job on this list ever did. These 25 jobs were never written up in any yearbook. They did not come with benefits or employee handbooks. They came with sore hands, an honest wage, and a lesson that lasted longer than the work itself. You earn your place in this world, and nobody hands it to you. The teenagers who held these jobs became the parents and grandparents who built what came next. Which of these summer jobs did someone in your family hold? Leave a comment and tell the story your way.